we're going to talk about economic basics. I know you may be taking an economic class, but we're going to focus in on exactly what this means to us in the world of business. Some of the basic things we have to know are really the economic effects, how much the economy has an effect on the business climate overall. If you're in business, it's a big deal. If you have a job and may not have a job because the economy tanks, that's a big deal. If you have a job and it's an opportunity for prosperity, that's a big deal. How the economy handles is a big deal in all aspects of business. So pay attention to this because you'll have a couple different things to talk about macroeconomics, where we look on the national and the international perspective, and also the microeconomics. Here, we're at Irvine Valley College. Orange County, we have a totally different type of economy. And surprisingly, even just if you go down to Riverside and even San Bernardino, there are different dynamics that happen over there. And of course, there's different dynamics versus Kansas City and different dynamics to Atlanta, Georgia, Detroit, Michigan, or Alabama, wherever you go, you'll have a different microeconomic differences between sites, even within the same country. And of course, something very different than in Canada and also Korea. So pay attention to this aspect of it. Here's a big contrast if you look on this aspect, and the governing structure plays a major role. On the left is North Korea. Well, there's not any camels or horses pulling trailers down the middle of the street. On the right-hand side is one of the world's most prosperous nations. We call it South Korea. The only difference is that there's a big barrier between the North and South Korea. Oh yeah, and the North Korea is ruled by a dictator who sucks all the wealth into his own coffers and focuses on building military weapons instead of feeding his people or allowing them to be free. Freedom plays a big deal. And here in the United States, we are spoiled beyond belief. We just take it for granted. If sometimes I have to tell you, I live in a street that looks a little bit like the United Nations. We have people up and down the entire economic spectrum is where their original roots were, but also sometimes around the world. Too often I see that people that come here and come into our country and they go through the process of citizenship and they sit down there, they left another country, they probably appreciate the aspect of freedom and all the different things that freedom brings because they know what it's like not to have freedom. Here, we're spoiled beyond belief as to freedom. We have freedom for this and freedom for that, and we just don't appreciate it. Sometimes we have to close our eyes for a second and then open them and take a perspective as to where we're at. Here's a brief video I want to show you, and I apologize showing you a video in class, except for the fact this is really critical. We're going to take a look on the video, and we're going to see the differences between North and South Korea. This is a satellite taken from outer space. You can see Hanoi, Hainan Island. You can see the bright lights over Hong Kong, that whole aspect of it. Now the satellite is going across Asia, and you'll see over here, by the time you're done, you'll see Shanghai, all the bright lights, all the night lights, because there's activity. Pay attention now to this aspect over here, Beijing to the left, and now you're going to see Seoul, South Korea. Oh, and by the way, look at North Korea. Yes, tell me about what you think about North Korea. They don't have lights on in North Korea because the lights out and nobody's home. The people there are not free. And I want you to pay attention to that because freedom is the core for a nation to have prosperity. Capitalism is a big part of it. And yes, I'm a capitalist. That aspect of going through and looking at every economies, we have to study them and know what drives them. But the reality that it comes down to is what are we doing in the world of business and how does it apply to us? Let's look at economics, macroeconomics. This is for really big theaters. Actually, it is really big stuff. It's a matter of looking on the economy as a whole. So we're going to look at some different factors for that. And then microeconomics, the behavior of people and organizations in particular markets. Sometimes you pay attention to our market here in Orange County is very different than that over in the middle of the United States in Kansas City, for instance. Here we have a diversity, and I have to tell you, some of the things that I've seen on our economy is a lot of times when it comes to fashion, especially, you'll see the West Coast fashion That's us. We're called California. If it survives here, okay, and we have some wild things that come out of our state, just and not just fashion, but also in technology. We lead the nation on a lot of new technology. If it survives in California, you'll see fashion drifting across the United States, and a lot of times it'll arrive on the East Coast 2.5 to 3 years later. And I'm sorry, New York City is not the center of fashion. I hate to tell you that. Los Angeles and California is. If it survives our economy, you'll see it eventually drifting across the United States. We establish a lot of different things, and that's based upon this concept of microeconomics. We're very different than other parts of the country, and I'm certain some professor in New York City would be happy to argue with me, but of course they're wrong and I'm right, just in case you wanted to know. Resource development is a big thing, and we're looking right now about how we handle resources, especially on energy, new ways of growing foods, new ways of creating things. Did you hear what I kept on saying? New ways, new ways, new ways. That is part of the crux that you're going to see with a capitalistic society is we're looking for new ways because the entrepreneur is looking for a niche where they can sit down there and thrive and prosper. They're always looking for innovation. That is the core of success of a nation, the core of success for a business, and the core of success for an entrepreneur as well. Production and economy. There's all kinds of new ways of producing goods and services. Once upon a time, we relied upon wild catching salmon. Here you're seeing a whole area of fish farms, and you'll see sometimes you'll see different fish, but they harvest the salmon over here, and that way we continue to have the wild fish and don't have as significant impact on the environment as we were before by overfishing. Here we actually plant the fish, we grow the fish in the process, and you'll see it right over here. It's a new way of doing things, really only about maybe 30 years old on a scale that it is today. That being said, the secret, really, by the time you're done, creating a wealth economy, according to Thomas Malthus. And by the way, if you want to read this, he really is boring and he really is a matter of negative. You almost feel like, oh my God, the world's going to be worse. But Malthus, that's just who he is. That's how he wrote. But he talked about the aspect that the rich had most of the wealth and the poor had most of the populations. Resources were run out, and the world will be overcome. And right now, if you look on the world stats, to some extent, he was right on some things. But one thing that we do have a change is right now we have population growth is actually slowing down. You have nations, including China and the United States. China, once upon a time, had a one child per family policy. Right now, they're saying, have more children. You even hear Elon Musk out there saying, have more children. So, really, we need to have more children for hopefully, but that's your job, not mine anymore. So, you look at really the world population, boom to bust. The population is going to grow, really, they claim, to about 10 billion by the year 2050. We're going to have a big impact on resources due to declining birth rates. Wait a minute. Let's go back and check the numbers. Let's check the numbers on the textbook. I want you, as a student, a college student, to always pay attention to what is the real data. Sometimes you might even have the news giving you stuff that's not accurate. Oh, what a shock. If that's a shock to you, you need to go pay attention to what's happening in the real world out there. A lot of us, we sit down and we focus in on and have this echo chamber where people say the same things that we think, and therefore they're right. And those other people, they're wrong. We need to pay attention to the entire picture. Is the world going to overpopulation? Are we all going to die standing on top of each other? Oh no, oh no. We've been hearing this song and dance for years and years. Here's an example. In 2023, there are 8 billion 100 million people on planet Earth. If you took a 3 foot by 3 foot square, put every single human being on it in an area, and they were side by side, so every person has 9 square feet, 3 foot by 3 foot, how much would all these people fit in? Would they fill the entire geographical territory of the mainland United States, the 48 states? Would they fit in the western half of the United States from the Mississippi to the Pacific? Would they just fill all of California? Or would they fill all of San Bernardino County? Well, San Bernardino is the biggest county in the United States, but would they fill all of it? They only have 9 square feet. Would they fill? Let me give you a clue. They would fill all of San Bernardino County. You know what? Go figure the measurement yourself, go calculate the different odds of it. They'll fill all San Bernardino County. They'll just a little bit, they'll exceed the entire population and the geographic area of Miami, Florida as well. Okay, this idea of the world's overpopulated, we're going to walk on top of each other. Please do me a favor. Go take a look in Wyoming where there's 0.78 people per square mile. Go take a look at all of Canada. Go look at huge territory. Are we going to overpopulate the planet Earth? The answer is, pay attention to the data. Do we have food shortages in some parts of the world? Yes, that's an agricultural problem, not an overpopulation problem, not an overcrowding problem. Are there places in the United States or China or whatever that are overcrowded? The answer is yes. The answer is move to different areas. So it depends what you want. Be careful what you read in the media. Pay attention to the data. You should be the intelligent opinion whenever you express it, instead of just shooting from the hip and saying, well, I think. Go study the facts before you think. Business is not about taking an assumption and just running with it. It's about taking an assumption, looking at it, developing it, because of the fact that your livelihood, the money you make and the money you earn and the lifestyle that you seek really is based upon you paying attention to the details and then moving forward. Especially when it comes to you as a student, that details matter. So contrary to Malthus, some macroeconomics believe a large population can be a resource. We can thrive if we sit down there and have an economy based upon the fact of rewarding people and giving them freedom, which is what our country is about. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Adam Smith, he wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations. I have to tell you, it's a thick book. I read it, actually, I read it twice. I really liked it in the aspect of it really describes things in a simplistic term, and it's an old book. And yes, it's got a little bit of old English and it's got a few illustrations that are aged, but here's a reality. He talked about this thing called the invisible hand. And he says that the invisible hand, it sits on all of our shoulders, and it turns us for a self-directed gain for benefits for ourselves as well as other people as well. Because if we help others thrive, then we'll reap a benefit in the process. If we help somebody else in their own situation in life, the entire economy will prosper. And so he really focused on the aspect of how you grow communities and how they'll prosper. He focused in on farmers. If a farmer has a plot of land and the agriculture produced on that plot of land helps feed the people and the farm, and he sells his goods and he makes money on it, and he buys more land and then buys more land, more fertilizer, and improves the overall crop delivery of the land. He can sell more goods, has to hire more people. People get jobs, they get money, they go out. And you can see this in the United States, especially if you go back, really look at Henry Ford. Henry Ford sat there, started building cars on the assembly line. Prior to him, there was an industrial age going, but it wasn't close enough that it would hit the entire American population. It really created a middle class in America. And if you pay attention, you can watch China going through this right now. China just 50 years ago was a third world impoverished nation. And now, through some clever governments in the process, they've really come a long ways. Now, frankly, in the last 10 years, they're slipping back into this dictatorship and they're stifling the freedom of the Chinese people. And I have to tell you, the Chinese people are some industrious, hardworking, intelligent people. It's too bad they have a government that doesn't believe in freedom, but believes in control. But that's a whole different topic. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But the reality of it comes down to is that when people are left for freedom and they thrive, the community around them will thrive and expand in the process over here. So, a couple of the basics. Pay attention to the invisible hand theory, because that invisible hand, we'll talk about it in just a little bit, it does guide us on an almost daily basis. So that being said, know the difference between macroeconomics and microeconomics. We're going to finish off the topic of economic basis in chapter 2 and then use it to apply it for the rest of the course. In the meantime, take care.